My name is Joan DiMartino. I'm the museum curator and site superintendent of the Prudence Crandall Museum here in Canterbury, Connecticut. And Prudence Crandall is the state heroine of Connecticut. We are a National Historic Landmark, and the reason this site is so important is because the events that occurred here between 1833 and 1834 impacted two United States Supreme Court cases, Dred Scott and Brown versus Board of Education, Topeka, and it also laid the foundation for the 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution. So it's a story that is extremely significant in American history, but not a lot of people know about, and so I would like to share this story with you today. In 1831, Prudence Crandall, who was a white teacher, she purchased a property on the Canterbury Green to start a school. So she was the principal of a school. She was a business owner during a time when women did not have many rights. They were not allowed to right to vote. She was able to own property because she was a single woman, and she started a school here. The student body at the time was white. The school was a success. It was getting attention. People were sending their daughters. There was a family named the Harris family. They were an African-American family from Norwich, Connecticut, and they moved to town. They were farmers, and they were also distributors for William Lloyd Garrison's abolitionist newspaper, The Liberator. And Sarah Harris wanted to be a teacher as well. She was a 20-year-old young woman, and she asked Prudence Crandall if she could attend the school. Prudence Crandall, after thinking about it, did say yes. She admitted Sarah Harris as a full-time student, and the town opposed her integrating the school. When the town increased their opposition, they were having meetings, they were threatening to shut her school down by withdrawing students. Prudence Crandall contacted William Lloyd Garrison herself and said that she was interested in closing her school for white students and only opening for black and brown students because she felt that that was the way that she could most help what she called the oppressed people in the United States at that time. And William Lloyd Garrison met with her. He completely supported her endeavors. He helped introduce her to families that would be able to afford the tuition to send their daughters to this school. He introduced her to important ministers in the abolitionist movement. And so that's what she did. Many of her students came from out of state. They came from New York City. They came from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. They came from Boston, Massachusetts, and Providence, Rhode Island, as well as other towns in Connecticut. Connecticut responded by passing what became known as the Black Law in May of 1833. And that was a law that essentially said that it was illegal for African Americans to enter the state of Connecticut for the purpose of receiving an education. Prudence Crandall felt that that law was just a horrible law as it was, and she determined to maintain her school. She was arrested for breaking this law, and she then had 3 court trials. And the case ultimately became dismissed on a technicality. They complained, the judges claimed that the arrest warrant was not written up properly, and therefore Prudence Crandall could maintain her school. The town was outraged and attacked the school on the night of September 9th of 1834. But she maintained the school for 17 months, and during that time, she maintained it under significant harassment to herself and the students. There were townspeople who owned stores that would not sell goods to them. Their well was fouled with horse manure. There was a cat that had black and white fur that was killed and hung on their fence. There was an arson attempt on the school, and a local African-American man named Frederick Olney was put on trial for starting that fire, even though he was the person that helped sound the alarm and put the fire out. He was acquitted. And there was just increased harassment. Rocks were thrown through windows, Eggs were pelted at the sides of the school until the eventual mob attack that forced the school to close. At that point, Crandall realized that she was unable to maintain and guarantee the safety of the students, so she did send the students home to their families. But the court cases that came out of the trials and the fact that the students, another section of the Black law said that the students had to testify against their teacher, which they did do. The students claimed their Fifth Amendment rights, which was pretty significant. They were really the heroes of those trials. So the first trial was actually a hung jury. There was no determination of a acquittal or a conviction. And then the second trial, the judge determined to convict Prudence Crandall. The jury was directed to do so. And then it was on the appeals trial that it was thrown out of court. But William Ellsworth, who was the defense attorney for Prudence Crandall, he was arguing that the Black law was unconstitutional because the students that were African American were born in the United States. They were free, therefore they had the right of citizenship to attend whatever school that they wanted and could afford to do so. And that was the foundation for the 14th Amendment. Incidentally, a lot of people also do not know that William Ellsworth goes on to be a governor of Connecticut 4 years after Prudence Crandall's school closes. And one of the first acts as governor is that he repeals the Black law in 1838. I also want to mention too, very briefly, that Prudence Crandall's students went on to become educators, reformers, and really just leaders in their community. There are several that were internationally known as well. I want to name a few of them. Mary Harris, who was Sarah Harris's younger sister, went on to teach in New Orleans, where she helped found what is now known as Dillard University. It was Straight College when she helped found it with her husband. She was an English teacher in that university. She also her son and her daughter-in-law also became well-known and established educators. Sarah Harris herself became part of the abolitionist movement and worked with Frederick Douglass. She assisted the Underground Railroad. Mary Miles became an advocate for self-emancipated people. She moved to Canada with her husband. She is recognized with a marker, and a park is named after her in Canada for her work assisting self-emancipated people when they fled to Canada. Julia Williams, who married Henry Highland Garnett. He was a contemporary of Frederick Douglass. He started an industrial school in Jamaica, and she also was just a well-known leader who was credited with assisting her husband with writing his speeches. So a lot of times people will describe this school as unsuccessful because it only lasted 17 months, but Prudence Crandall and the students managed to maintain a school and learn here for 17 months during intense and increased persecution and prosecution, and then went on to continue to do incredible things in their communities throughout their lives. So I would argue instead that this school here was an amazing success, and I hope more people visit Canterbury, Connecticut, and the Prudence Crandall Museum to learn even more about this amazing history that's here in Connecticut.